I'm sorry, I'm gonna get distracted. I love to watch babies. So if I'm staring over this way, it's okay. And they're staring back at me.
Yes.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Well, good morning. Welcome. My name is Bill Johnson. I'm one of the 6 elders. Supposedly, I am the fun elder, according to the song.
That's right.
So
I mean, you drove the college bus.
I drove the college bus, and somebody said, "Who's that creepy guy in the college bus?" That was me. So and I was always sitting in the back, and everybody said, anyway, we're going to be talking about church work today. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about Del Rey for those of you that are visiting or just being here. Or some of you may have been here forever and may not have realized stuff about Del Rey. Del Rey was established back in the 50s. It was a small congregation that, when it was established out here, this was almost on the far east side of town. We own approximately 25 acres from the Atlanta Highway all the way back. We bought this 10.5 acres back here just for protection. It came available years ago. And a lot of this is in floodplain right back here in the back, so we can't use a whole lot of it back there. But we own this. We also own the Capitol Heights building up on Madison Avenue. That's where our Spanish ministry is at from the University Church. 100,000 square foot facility and outlying buildings there. Even on Google Maps, it shows that our Del Rey food pantry is here. So it has made a name for itself. Every Wednesday at 6:30 in the morning, Freddie and Billy give out, I don't know how many bags of groceries each week for benevolence. We'll be talking about that in a couple of weeks, about our benevolence work. We have approximately 300 members at the current time. We were up higher before COVID, but that's what we've got right now. 6 elders, 28 deacons to oversee the work that is here going on. We have a paid staff that is our pulpit, our family, and our youth minister. We also have an in-house missionary, better known as Gift. Church secretary, we have a Freddie. Everybody's heard of Freddie. He's our guy that fixes everything around here. We also have a janitor, Richard, which has been with us for years and years and years and years. We also have a board of trustees, which handles all of our legal documents and everything. We are a business. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, but we have to have a board of directors to take care of selling property, buying property, et cetera, et cetera. So the elders are not part of that. We are involved in mission work all around the world. We have 34 mission points right now. We're on 6 continents, 15 countries, and with one message all the way around. And you can see from the dots, this is where our works are going on right now. John DeGray is in Ukraine this morning. He's been worshiping with them early this morning. Our facilities. This is our nursery wing. I've always been curious why we have the college down on the nursery wing. But it is there. We have fully staffed nurseries. The college group meets there on Sundays and Wednesday nights, also for their devos. Our elementary education wing, 8 classrooms down through there. Our adult wing, 4 classrooms here, plus the teen room upstairs. And then we have our worship service. I took this picture last week just to give you a sense of what it looks like from the back with things going on. This is a view from the sound booth. And for those of us that have worked in the sound booth, we realize that this is the view when the mics quit working.
Yeah.
Everybody turns around like, what's going on? Years ago, when I was working the sound booth, my son was up there with me. He was probably about 7 or 8. And we had just got a brand new lapel microphone for the preacher, not realizing that the Baptist church across had just gotten a brand new lapel mic for their choir. And all of a sudden it started bleeding in with their Christmas cantata. So everybody, my son, he got under the deck up there. He just disappeared all of a sudden. And I'm going, it's not me. So we found We just need to put it on a different frequency, but it was interesting. Church work is what we're talking about. Well, isn't that special? You guys remember the church lady? Oh, yeah. The latest topic of the day, and then she said, well, isn't that special? So the question that we're raising today and looking at is, as we look at things, this guy says, I love this church. I do practically anything for it. I mean, anything other than actually join it or give money or work and such. There's some folks' attitude out there. Do 80% of the work. How do we get that 20% to do more? That's not the question we need to be asking, but that's kind of what we're looking at sometimes. I thought this was a pretty good day I saw. It says the church is a cruise ship or a handful on board. It's more of a battleship where it's all hands on deck and everybody's there for the mission. This is the USS Alabama down in Mobile. If you've never been on it, it is something to be seen. So I would encourage you to go through it. It's not a bus, heaven bound. Y'all come on, get on the bus. We're going. It's not a bus. Get your ticket and ride. More of one of these things. Y'all ever been on one of these when you go up? Some cities offer these for tours. I'd rather get on the bus and tour than do this. But this is more what church work is all about, where everybody is helping to do this and that and keep things moving. Whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the inheritance as your reward. You are serving the Lord Christ. Revelation. This is very sobering to me. In the book of Revelation, John is told to write these things down from Jesus himself. And these are the 7 churches in Asia Minor. And look at what it says after each one. To the angel of the church in Ephesus, I know your works. To the angel at Samaria, it says, I know your tribulations and your poverty. And to the angel of the church of Pergamum, I know where you dwell, where Satan's throne is. It goes on to compliment. It just says they're in a tough area. And the rest of them says, I know your works. I know your works. I know your works. So the question this morning is, what exactly is church work? If someone was to ask you that question, what would you tell them? What exactly is church work?
Kind of a broad topic. I mean, anything that you can get involved in to, expand the kingdom of God, but it's smaller stuff too. Like we've done natural disaster relief. There's opportunities in that. Opportunities around town, taking Lord's Supper to the shut-ins, etc. It's a real broad topic, I'd say.
Okay.
It's also small things like taking care of your building.
Yeah.
What else?
Serving one another.
Serving one another. Okay.
You could even say something that would be going kind of through the heart of the person in a sense too. Something that's church work is something you do, even broadly speaking, is something you do with the intention of knowing this is work unlike all the others. This is work you're going to do from the heart because you're trying to serve God and serve other people, not because you're expecting something in return. This is something that is using the idea of this might help somebody else reach the kingdom of God, and that's the only payment you're hoping that shows up.
What else? Well, where do we actually find an outline or a job description or something that tells us what the church should be doing?
Acts 2.
Acts. Probably the whole New Testament, from Acts on out, talks about what we should be doing and how we're supposed to be doing it. We know we should come together to worship. That's a given. But it's the other things that come in around that we need to look at and that we need to be careful about, well, what is important, what's not important, what should the church be doing, what things should the church let somebody else do because it really doesn't fall into their privy. So these are the things that is really hard for an eldership and the deacons as well, who have charge over the works that we try to do. And there was a book that came out years ago from a gentleman named Ira North, and it's called Balance. And it's trying to find the right balance of how things work together. Because you can be real heavy on one thing and be doing a great job, and then you're lacking on some other things. So the idea is that we try to have a balance in what we do so that we take care of everybody and the needs. If we're heavily involved in missions overseas and neglecting somebody here, that's not a good thing. So that's why we try to keep and do a whole lot of things together. This was a collage that I found, and I thought this kind of expressed it pretty good. Other than big words, what other words jump out at you that says, oh, this is what we need to be doing?
Engage.
Engage, okay.
Evangelize.
Evangelize.
Seek.
What is it?
Seek.
Seek.
Encourage.
Encourage. All good works, right? All right, let's go to another one. Get this one. Love, grow, serve. The other one. So with everything that's on here, to love, grow, serve, we see all the other things that are going on around it here. Pray, be a friend, hope, act, care, trust, follow. There's that word seek again. And then one more. Be, make, send. So if we were to surmise everything and put it in kind of broad categories, evangelism is, as Grant said, it's kind of a broad stroke. Evangelism is one of our primary goals. Edification is one of our primary goals. And benevolence. Those are the three broad strokes that the church should be involved in as we look at. We'll talk about benevolence in a couple of weeks. I'll be back in to talk about that. Grant mentioned about helping with disaster relief, and that kind of falls into that benevolence work. But it also falls on just day-to-day operations with things that are going on around here as well. COVID hit us March 2020. One case was found in Montgomery County and everything shut down. I was doing tours downtown with fourth graders, and they started getting phone calls from all over the state saying, y'all come home. Everything shut down. Our COVID response was that we tried to keep things going for a while, and we did a Delray drive-in. We thought, well, this is pretty cool. We've got the wireless microphones. We've got FM radio transmitters. And we figured out a scheme that we could put about 75 cars in the parking lot, and the preacher would stand out. But the police wouldn't let us do it for a while. They said, no, the order still calls for any gathering. Well, they finally relented and allowed us to do this, and we held probably 15 when the weather was good, and then it started getting hot. And then, you know, how it goes. So that's when everybody moved over to the trees back over on this side. And it worked well. I mean, it worked. The cool thing was, as you left, you dropped your contribution in a big trash can, and people had their gloves on to get it out of the trash can. Now, this is back when we didn't know anything about COVID. How hard it was, how significant it was, how contagious it was. It worked great until it started getting real. So we did this. We taped off every other row when they allowed us to come back into the building. This is what the elders saw for weeks after weeks when we were doing the live stream ourselves. You talk about making you step back and think about how things are going. When there's only 5 of you in the whole building singing, when there's only 5 of you in the building when you're talking about the Lord's Supper, and one of those is going to preach, one of those is going to do this, one of those is going to do that. You got the sound booth guy. You try to keep as minimal folks in the building as possible. And then we came back with this. You guys remember when we taped everything off and we did? And a lot of folks still didn't want to come back. And we still have some today that are nervous about getting out and being in crowds. And we understand that. But it made us reflect on things. Del Rey is no stronger than the sum of the men and women who compose and make up its membership. Can y'all see that? An eldership can't do a whole lot if there's no members to follow. The eldership can't lead if people won't follow. I was in management for about 20 years with the federal government, and one of the first things I learned was in a class is you can't push a rope. Stop and think about that. No stronger than the men and women who compose it. Del Rey has no more influence than the sum total of its members. Y'all see that? Understand it? Del Rey has no more money than the sum that which its members purpose. We can have the most grandiose plans, the best ideas, but if there's no support behind it, some things are not going to get done. I tried to teach the hub group years ago how budgets work. And I brought in a bunch of different sized buckets. And we poured all the money into the big bucket first. And I said, this is the contribution on Sunday morning. About, yay! And I said, then what we do is we take a little bit of that and we start going down the line and putting it in all the buckets that we need to work in. I said, some goes to evangelism, some goes to missions, some goes to pay the electric bill, some goes to, and we're out of money. And there's 3 more buckets. And I said, what do we do? Get more money! Get more money! And I said, well, that all sounds good. But it's how much people purpose. Del Rey has a purpose. And it has a work to do in our community and the world. And that's where we need to find the balance. And that's where we as members come in. And he gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, and teachers to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, for building up the body of Christ. Not only are we supposed to evangelize, we've got to edify. We've got to build ourselves up. Not everybody can do the same job. I was not a public speaker. I'm still not a public speaker. I could not read a Bible verse in Bible class. I was paranoid. I did not grow up in the church. I met a young girl, I married that young girl, and she brought me to Christ. So now I stand up front, I read Bible verses. Back then, though, I was, if we were all in line, I'd start reading down through there to see which verse I was going to have and try to practice it, because there's a lot of words in here I cannot pronounce. Still today, I cannot pronounce. But everyone is needed in the body of the church. Jesus went throughout the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom and healing every disease and every affliction. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. That still applies today. Years ago, our son was playing baseball over in West Mississippi. We topped this hill and came over the top. Huge cotton crops, as far as you could see, just white as could be, because it was harvest time. And this verse came to mind when I saw all that. Man, this is amazing. The number one reason why people don't help out in the church is because they feel useless, or don't know what they can do to help out. What exactly can I do? I'm just Bill Johnson. I'm an electronics technician. I got a degree in computer science. Elder? No. Just because the church seems to be running smoothly from the pews on Sunday mornings, that's our goal. We want this to look seamless to what's going on in here. Doesn't mean we can't use a little help behind the scenes. Don't wait for somebody to ask you. People are really bad about asking for help sometimes. And the flip side of that is, they may not know what special skill you have. You think about Sunday mornings when this building opens up. Somebody comes in, turns on the lights. Somebody comes in, sets all this up over here. Somebody comes in, runs the sound booth, audio, visual, the video. Somebody comes in, sets all the communion out. Then you've got your opening prayer, your song leader, etc. Just go down the list of things that happen. Then when it's all over with, somebody picks up all the communion. Somebody goes around and picks up all the collection plates. Somebody counts all the money. Somebody closes the building up. Somebody turns out the lights. That's all things necessary for us to be in this building. Somebody takes care of the air conditioning. Several years ago, we had a work group that came together and designed an involvement sheet. And it's a trifold design, and some of you may have already filled this out and have seen it. And we came up with a whole lot of ideas about what people can do to help. And we put headers on them to kind of put them in generic areas. But I downloaded it this morning and took the headers off. And I wanted to see if we can kind of decide if this is evangelism, edification, or benevolence as we look through a list of things. So I thought we'd take a few moments to look at some of these. Anything jump out at you that says, well, that's evangelism? Nope, that's edification. Nope, that's benevolence.
I think most of that looks like education.
Okay.
Seems like a lot of it's like behind the scenes type deal. Except for those.
A lot of behind the scenes stuff. Get staff the nursery,
Except for the ones
help count the
with
money,
stars.
take attendance, help refill the cards and the pins and the pews. You know that's a job. There's a lot of them things. Help upstairs with the audio visual. Operate the sound equipment for services. Help with the announcement slides. Design the material, the graphics. Somebody in here's probably got a graphics line that works really, really great. I do pretty good at PowerPoint, but after that, not so much. Lead prayer, read scripture, lead singing, preside over the Lord's Supper. These all are part of the worship service. And the little asterisk is the ladies for the classes, or when you guys get together to do a day or something. Staff the nurseries. This all came under exaltation. These areas focus on the ways we can serve and lead our worship service. Look at another group. Help greet visitors at the services. Somebody has to get those people up to man the doors. Follow up and contact visitors. Visit visitors. Help with the orphans ministry. Prison. Food and clothing. Teddy bears. Help with major disaster relief. What areas would these fall in? Edification? Evangelism? Or do you see that they kind of cross each other?
They cross it, I think, benevolence and evangelism.
Focus on reaching out to those in our community, around the world, and teach them about the gospel. One of the reasons that we have made such inroads in the Ukraine is the humanitarian relief that we have provided over the years. John Kackelman, the older, has been going to Ukraine for 28 years. We have sent 100 containers from Del Reyna since this started, just this past year with the war going on there. 100 containers from us that we have coordinated. That's amazing. that much stuff has gone over there. And right now, John's over there making sure it's being distributed, and like I said, it's a phenomenal work. So sometimes just the food bank is the way we reach out to somebody and help them understand what we are about. Let's look at another one. Door knocking in the local community. Follow-up visits from the food pantry. Go on mission trips in the United States or foreign countries. COVID kind of stopped all that. How many of you have been on a mission? How many have been out of country with a mission? What was your impression of when you came back from that?
It was a completely different culture, like another way, because like I went to Jamaica a few different times and helped out with vacation Bible school, and or like near St. Mary and stuff. And a lot of the kids like didn't know about Jesus the way we do. They were so excited to go to church. Well, a lot of us, I'm not saying people here, but some people were like, oh, I gotta go to church, and they were like running to the van. They just wanted to hear about Jesus, and they always. Sometimes they're disciplined and may not be the same way. Sometimes there may be behavioral issues in class that you may have to resolve while teaching, and there's just a lot of differences, but it's very humbling.
Caleb, what was your impression of Ukraine when you went twice now, or three times, yeah?
I suppose the main thing was just how centralized everything is, because in America, you can go to a church that pretty much suits whatever you want. The church accommodates you in a lot of ways, which in some ways is a good thing and a bad thing, but in Ukraine everything's controlled by the central Ukrainian church, and everything's so rigid and structured, and people are stunned to learn that there are other ways of doing things, and there are people who do things differently than they do. And so that to me was probably the most striking thing is how different they viewed it, because here so many people look at Christian as a la carte thing where you can just kind of pick and choose what you believe and go with it, and there it's almost like they're unaware that there are people that believe differently than they do, and so that was pretty impactful to me.
They're okay with a lot less. The college group, used to go to Aruba every year. I went twice. They only run the AC at night. The church did not have air conditioning. They had open windows and like floor fans basically. And so it was very hot. But they didn't really complain, but we're used to, if the air is below 72 or above 72 here, and we're complaining about how hot it is, but there, it was just part of it, and, they didn't have, just elaborate things, and things were a lot more spread out, so you had to drive a good ways to get groceries or whatever, but they seemed content with less than what we have, and it seemed more grateful for small things. And they had congregational meals every week. Every week that church had, it was either on, I can't remember if it was Sunday or Wednesdays, but they all came together and everybody brought food. It wasn't just like one or two people. Everybody brought just spreads and spreads of food. So it was a bit of a culture shock at first, but second year I went, it was normal.
I think it makes you very thankful when you get back here for the things that we have. I feel like everybody should go on a mission trip somewhere. And there's that feeling of freedom, and you can't really put it into words, but there's a feeling that you have when you're outside of the country, and then you come back.
We were even warned when we went into the Ukraine, don't smile. I remember that?
Yep.
Because that's not what they do.
When we went to Russia, years and years ago, in the 90s, right after communism had, stopped, we went to that airport in Moscow, and hundreds of people, and you should have heard a pin drop. It was very silent. And also, they really got on the mic a lot to not be loud. Our group said, do not be loud. And But I remember just saying thank you to get my passport back, and the guard looked at me, and I thought, oh,
Mhm.
you just don't say anything. And, so it was very different.
I think one of the really amazing things about going to another country and another culture and sharing the gospel is that it really does solidify that heaven is for everyone. And so much of our Christianity today is influenced by the country that we live in. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is so important to go and share your faith with other people who live a different way, because it really does remind you that in heaven, we're all going to be speaking the same language, we're all going to be the same family, and regardless of the economy that we live in or who our governing bodies are, that we all have a common goal. And it helps you take your faith to a different level, because you've realized now it's not just sitting in Bible class, it's not just going to church every week, but it's communing with people around the world and sharing that faith and realizing that it's so much more than just church. It's a really special experience.
How did it make you feel about your local congregation when you got back?
We're spoiled.
Pardon?
We're spoiled.
We're
Yeah.
spoiled?
Yeah, I know when I went to Jamaica, when we were at the Church of Christ down there, like, I could tell, like, a lot of, like, the older people, especially were, like, they were very disciplined, like, they did not take the Bible for granted, like, they were singing their hearts out, and I think the same thing applies to here, but, like, kind of like what you said, like, sometimes we take it for granted, but we don't realize it, until, like, they're content with what they have, and they're just as joyful, or even more joyful, about the Lord sometimes.
Even in the United States, we're blessed that down south, it's pretty much given that everybody's gonna be in church today. You go a little bit further north, not so much. We took the youth to Ohio for several years, and it's different. Congregations are very sparse, even churches. Latest survey comes out that says Christianity in the United States is down below 70%. Approaching 60% Christian nation. We're thankful that we have so many folks that want to do mission work, that want to do all this stuff. Teach a Bible class, assist in Bible class. Education is a strong thing about edifying one another. To learn, for us to go somewhere, we've got to know something. We don't have to have a PhD in it, but to know, to share, to be able to just talk to somebody. How are they going to hear if we don't send somebody? Is the message there? How are we going to know unless somebody teaches us? And it all starts way down yonder in the nursery class. Check on folks. This is a strong thing. Remember the first problem in the church was the Grecian women, right? Because they weren't being seen about it. So we check on folks, check on the shut-ins. You'll be surprised how much you'll make somebody's day that's shut-in. Out of that 300 members that we have right now, 10% of that are shut-ins right now. There's a list that comes out on Mondays that shows all the shut-ins. There's about 30-something folks on that right now. Help maintain the database. Somebody's got to keep up with all this stuff.
Hey, note about the shut-ins, a lot of them have caregivers there, and you're also influencing those caregivers who are not Christians. You're
Right.
bringing food, and they know that the church is seeing about those people.
Edification, strong edification. We hope that we have a balance with what we're doing with evangelism, edification, and benevolence. We try to look at our mission work as all part of that as well. We want everybody to have an opportunity to be involved somewhere. There's probably a passion that you have that's on this list somewhere. If you fill out that form, either online or in person, and hand that back in, that goes to a deacon. A deacon has a database then of folks that want to be doing certain things, that he can call upon those people and say, hey, would you mind doing this with me? We're proud we've got 28 deacons. We're proud that we have so many folks that want to work. This is for our all the way from the huddle, all the way up, education, fellowship, all the ages. It's important for folks to get together. It's important for us to come together and be a part of one another. Help with the small projects are maintained, help with the workday, drive the bus to pick up the members. Some of us have our CDL license, some of us don't need a CDL license to drive the little bus. But for events like that, Freddie needs help sometimes. Painting parties, I heard somebody mention that earlier. We've had work days where we go and clean up a bunch of stuff around here. All of those things are important, not so much for edification, but it is a fellowship. When everybody gets together, they're having, I hate to say fun, but that's kind of what it is. It's hard work, but everybody's enjoying being with each other, working things out. Buildings and grounds. I Serve. I don't know if you're familiar with I Serve. This is something that came up locally. John Keckelman and Nick Rebels came up with this I Serve program. If you don't have it on your phone, I would encourage you to get it. This is, you look up me, there's my wife and myself. You can get push notifications about things that are going on. You can look up members right quick and say, oh, I wonder what they look like. Ooh, yeah, okay, I remember them. Addresses, announcements, birthdays. That helps me so much to remember when people's birthday is. It's amazing that if you send a text to somebody and say, hey, happy birthday, they're so excited. You remembered my birthday. What was on my shirt? But this is Nick Rebels and this is John Kackelman. If you don't know who these guys are, they can be glad to help you. Thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for encouraging us as the eldership with your support and your attendance. So thank you all for the opportunity to be with you. The end.